Pope Francis, the first Latin American pontiff, has died, the Vatican has announced. He was 88. Like and subscribe NewzClub for more updates. The announcement would have come as a shock to many, coming less than a day after the Pope made a high-profile appearance in public. The death of Francis, who was one of the oldest popes in the Church's history, came weeks after he was discharged from a Rome hospital having battled a life-threatening case of pneumonia in both lungs. The Pope's death was announced on Monday morning by Cardinal Kevin Farrell. The Vatican Camerlengo. Dear brothers and sisters, with deep sorrow I must announce the death of our Holy Father Francis, a statement from the Camerlengo said. Jorge Mario Bergoglio was born on December 17, 1936, in Buenos Aires to parents of Italian descent. The oldest of 5 children. He became the Bishop of Rome in 2013, setting the tone for his pontificate on the night of his election. Francis was the first Latin American and member of the Jesuit order to be elected pope in the Church's 200-year history. He was also the first pope to call himself Francis. Pope Francis spent his final days in service of the Church, participating as much as he could in the celebration of Easter, the high point of the Christian calendar. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance, who met with Francis hours before his death, said he was happy to see the Pope on Easter Sunday, though he was obviously very ill. Pope Francis died of a stroke followed by heart failure on Monday morning, the Vatican's press office said in a statement released Monday evening. Pope Francis died Monday morning at Casa Santa Marta, a guesthouse near St. Peter's Basilica where Francis has lived since his election in 2013, according to the Vatican spokesperson. The Pope died on the second floor of the residence, according to the Vatican press office. Church bells across Rome began to ring after the Vatican announced Pope Francis's death on Monday morning. The day before he died, Pope Francis received a visit from a world leader with whom he'd recently tangled on the issue of immigration. Pope Francis's death follows a decline in his health during the final years of his papacy. The 88-year-old pontiff, who as a young man had a small part of one lung removed, was admitted to Rome's Gemelli Hospital on February 14 after experiencing bronchitis symptoms. A subsequent CT scan led to a diagnosis of pneumonia in both lungs. His condition stabilized and, 5 weeks later, the pontiff was allowed to return to the Vatican to continue his recovery. However, after leaving hospital the pontiff was unable to speak for long periods due to his respiratory difficulties and underwent physiotherapy to help regain his voice. He also had difficulty raising his arms and wore a nasal cannula to receive oxygen. The Camerlengo, or Chamberlain, is the acting head of the Vatican in the period between the death or resignation of a pope and appointment of the next leader of the Catholic Church. It's the Camerlengo's job to officially ascertain the pope's death, draw up the death certificate, place seals on the pope's bedroom and study and make funeral preparations. Pope Francis's body could lie in state in St. Peter's Basilica for people to come and pay their respects, a Vatican spokesperson said Monday. Pope Francis will be the first pope in more than a century to be buried outside the Vatican. Although popes are usually buried in the grottos beneath St. Peter's Basilica in the Vatican City, Francis's final resting place will be the Basilica of Santa Maria Maggiore on the other side of the River Tiber in Rome. President Donald Trump ordered flags to be flown at half-staff as a mark of respect for the memory for Pope Francis, who passed on Monday. Tributes are pouring in from all around the world after the death of Pope Francis. Pope Francis's funeral will take place at the Vatican on Saturday morning, with world leaders including Donald Trump, Emmanuel Macron and Volodymyr Zelensky to attend. A new pope will need to be elected following the death of Pope Francis, a process rooted in history that's called conclave, the secret meeting of cardinals to hold a papal election. The conclave typically happens 15 and 20 days after the papal office becomes vacant. Thanks for watching NewzClub.